Now with agenda item number 3 and item 3.30, the strategic plan update. Mr. Smith.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. Behind me I have our PowerPoint for the next portion of our meeting around the strategic plan. I'm going to make sure this works here, and it's good. And so we asked ourselves, before we started looking at Portrait of a Graduate, we asked ourselves a question. And it was this very important question here. Which student would you choose? If you were choosing skills that we want our students to be proficient with as they leave Fairfax County School, would it be student A, a student who's proficient in math, science, English, and social studies, those 4 core areas? And Dr. Garza mentioned that as she talked about the meeting with the joint board. Or would you use student B, who has a strong sense of all of those pieces of column A, but then also shows content mastery, who's a critical thinker, effective communicator, creative and innovative, and an effective collaborator. And so again, all of that thinking went into the development of Portrait of a Graduate, which gives us this. We've spent some time focusing on Portrait of a Graduate, so I'm not going to linger on these slides. There's a great video that we were going to share showing Dr. Garza. I will share, and she was talking about how Portrait of a Graduate just isn't for high school, and how our elementary students are a part of this, as well as our middle school. I can share that it was well received by our elementary teachers. Lots of positive comments. That was shared with me as we were talking about adding this video. And so our teachers understand, even at the elementary level, how important their participation is in Portrait of a Graduate. And so as we look at Portrait of a Graduate being the heart of the strategic plan, and you just took your 5-minute tour to reacquaint yourself with the work that we engaged in this summer during the board retreat, you saw the 17 findings. Hopefully you reacquainted yourself with some of those draft statements, those goal statements that were made that ECRA actually shared with us. I'm going to share that with you just so you understand how we developed these particular goal areas that we're going to talk about today. The one area that was developed in the draft plan was success for every child. And we had another area called responsive and caring culture. There was an area that we have kept, as you'll see behind me, of premier workforce. And then there was another area of infrastructure and resource alignment. So we, in good faith, took the work that you developed that day with our 17 findings and all the wonderful input that we got from you as board members. We took that back to the leadership team to really get a better sense of what this meant for Fairfax County so that we could bring this back to you. And our work in terms of our goal areas is behind me here, with student success being one of those goal areas. Going around the circle to your right, we have premier workforce, identifying the fact that we want to ensure that we do have a premier workforce so that we can ensure that all of our students are successful. We have resource stewardship. That's that sense of being good stewards of taxpayer dollars and all of our resources that we have available to us in Fairfax County Schools. And lastly, coming around, this gets to some of the ideas that we were talking about with Portrait of a Graduate, ensuring that we have a caring culture for our students, for our staff, and for our community. And within those particular goal areas, we created some taglines. And those taglines are things that we looked at as our commitments to this work, our commitments to student success. And so we offer you today to consider not only these goal areas, but the taglines for student success. We commit to reach, challenge, and prepare every student for success in school and life. With caring culture, and we chose caring culture as that second goal area because we felt that in order to do that, we had to ensure that we had that strong culture in place, that we commit to foster a responsive, caring, and inclusive culture where all feel valued, supported, and hopeful. Under premier workforce, we commit to invest in our employees, encourage innovation, and celebrate success. And lastly, under resource stewardship, we commit to champion the needs of our school communities and be responsible stewards of the public's investment. And that word investment is a very strong word to use because the public is investing not only our students or their students in our schools, but they're investing their trust in our work and that we're going to use those dollars wisely. To let you know where we are at this point, we've created these 4 goal areas. We've created our taglines for your consideration, and we've divided the work among 4 champions, each one of us taking on one of these goal areas. And we're currently developing objectives under those goal areas and strategic actions under those goal areas. We will be coming back together as a leadership team on the 18th of September. We have a full-day retreat set aside where we're going to actually engage in this work in a meaningful way so that we can create more bones around the strategic plan. And then after that time, once we have a draft plan pulled together, we'll be pulling ECRA back. And we have a few more meetings with ECRA as part of their contract. They'll come back and they'll help us with developing those measures around the objectives. How do we want to measure what success looks like? Well, looks like within each of those objective areas. Once we have those measures developed and add those to the plan, we then expect to bring something back to the board in the October-November timeframe. And so that is a very quick presentation of the work that we've created to date for our strategic goals, the taglines, and giving you just a precursor of what's to come.
Good. Thank you, Marty. If I might add a few things. The design of this for your consideration, we felt like we needed short areas that were easy to communicate and easy to remember so that we can give our elevator speech when we need to do that. But we felt like we needed the sentences underneath to provide more detail around what you all meant. So I hope that you see your words reflected there. For an example, under resource stewardship, and I heard you all talking about how important it is to be able to champion for the needs of our students. And I know that Dan talked about that quite a bit, as did some of you. So our goal and what we hope we've done here is really reflect the words that you talked about quite a bit on July the 18th and throughout this work, and certainly reflected there.
And Karen, with that, we had your work in the room with us as a leadership team and referred to it as we created those objective areas or those goal areas because we wanted to strongly align with your work.
We hope we were also very cognizant of the 17 findings from the ECRA group and some other materials that they have provided over time. We've had one retreat with LT that we created this work, but we also have begun the work on the objectives and the detail underneath. We're not yet ready for that to come to prime time yet, but I'm hoping after this next retreat on September the 18th that we will have a more developed plan that we can bring back to you all for consideration. And we've actually scheduled that. You'll see in your work document on this green paper, we've actually scheduled some detailed time, some lengthy time to bring something back to you on October the 8th. Assuming we're headed in the right direction with all of that, we believe that would be the appropriate time then to bring in focus groups of various stakeholders and get a little bit more input and then bring it back to you at another time. But to bring it back, we're hoping that we can get this to a position and a place where you all feel comfortable so that we have at least this part of it approved by the board in September so we can keep working on what's underneath. What we're seeing already, for an example, under student success, we will have some sub-goals that I think that you'll like. For example, the student achievement gap will be a sub. It may not be worded exactly like that, but there will be a very specific section just on addressing the achievement gaps. So you'll see that in the next iteration in October.
Thank you, Dr. Garza. And my colleagues, I will begin the conversation with Ms. Evans.
Thank you. I'll be very brief. I think that you did a great job on this. When we left that conversation, I kind of came away from it thinking, have we made it so broad and so inclusive and had so much in here that we haven't given really very much guidance? But, I look at this and I feel like it's very clear, it's very crisp, but it's also very inclusive. So I like this a lot. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. McLaughlin?
It's a home run. I'm so thrilled with how you could take, again, all of the community input, board input, these 17 ECRA findings, and distill it into something that, in my mind, captures what is a premier school system. And everything that I've heard my colleagues and I convey over the last almost 3 years of what our hopes are for this system. I'm so excited, and thank you for everyone's hard work with this.
Thank you.
Mr. McElveen?
Just one small change. Workforce is one word.
Yes, we know that it was an issue with the slide, but that will be corrected. Thank you.
Ms. Strauss?
And we did take out 4.
Yes. Those who
Ms.
are,
Hines was correct. We checked with some English teachers, and the 4 was taken out. Champion the needs.
yeah.
I think it's excellent. I think it captures, I think that it's brilliant having basically 4 headings, because I think listening to the previous conversation that we had, I think this includes everything that we were kind of working towards. So I think everything will fit very nicely under it, and you've met all the objectives, not only what we said in many more words than we needed to say, but I think it's there. Thanks.
Mr. Velkoff?
Okay, I want to serve notice that I'm going to start a one-person crusade to ban the use of Portrait of a Graduate as an acronym. I never want to hear POG. Okay, so I have one question. We talked about very briefly the strategic goals measures, and my question is, how do those relate to the concerns about developing authentic assessments? Are those the same thing, or are those separate things?
So you'll see and I'm jumping ahead a little bit, but you'll see when we bring back, assuming these are kind of the 4 strategic buckets that you all feel comfortable with moving forward, we are developing more detailed planning documents underneath these. And you will very definitely see a whole component on balanced assessment and what that would look like, how we integrate more authentic work with students, more project-based learning, capstone projects. That's the direction we'd like to go with this, building upon some great work that this system has had in place for some time. Like I brought the example up of the 5th grade global awareness project. That's meaningful, authentic, and certainly reflects a new and more exciting way to assess students. So you'll see that in this next component of work. Now, a couple of things, and maybe this gets us a little too far, but what you'll see underneath, we believe, will be some kind of, I forget the words we've used, target, I just went blank, Steve.
We've had objectives and strategic actions.
We will have measures for each of the specific activities, but we are likely to have measures for the entire goal area as well, because that would give us 2 ways of reporting back to the board. And like, for example, in the area of student success, it may be too broad. I mean, it may be too many individual metrics for the various specific activities, but you definitely want your, and that's where the student achievement goals, to me, would be very much.
So you'd have a measure at the objective level.
Right.
So that it could be easily digested.
I think that'll become clear on October the 6th or 8th, when it is, we bring back, what is it, October 6th? Some different ways of us kind of measuring, reporting out to you all, and you'll have an opportunity to tell us if we're heading in the right direction or not.
That's wonderful. October 6th can't come too soon for me now. Thank you.
Ms. Hines?
Yeah, I'll just echo what everybody said. This is really, really great work. I mean, I'm amazed after the conversation we had. It all makes a lot of sense. The caring culture language in particular, I think this is kind of what I was fumbling to talk about when I was talking about the 5th column there, is sort of this kind of language of valued, supported, hopeful, that sort of thing. I mean, I don't know if it belongs in the 5th column, but that's, I think it's very important that that be one of our overarching goals.
So we talked a little bit about measurement, and I'm excited also to see what you come back with on the student success measures, because those are really important. My own feeling is that what we need to report out to the community does not need to have a lot of detail, right? I mean, so it's the broader kind of, and that will, the portrait of a graduate, the goals within the portrait of a graduate will be reflected in that reporting out, I assume, right? That's how those mesh. Okay. And measures on the others. I mean, when I look at this, I also think about how we're hopefully evolving in our conversation with the community when we ask for resources, right? Because we have, some of our funders ask questions like, well, what are your priorities, right? So I think the idea is that this sets out pretty clearly what our priorities are and how we will measure our progress on those priorities. And then my hope is that we'll be able to tie to each one of these the investment that it will take to get from where we are now to where we want to be. Is that the goal? Okay. Thank you.
Ms. Schultz.
So this is why we had to let the previous thing go to you, because that somehow became this, and we're worried about a couple of columns, and I'm glad that we made the decision to let the previous go, because I know that you heard and understood, and now you just need to do and give us the paperback for the previous. Two, Dr. Lockard, do you see how hard we've worked? We're going to have to invent something to do, to give him, because we've done this in the last year, and now it's like it's all done. So it's not a turnkey operation. We're going to have to find something difficult for you to do. I don't know what it is, but we're going to have to come up with something. This is
Yes, I think he does.
This is a stunning outcome.
I was just going to say, I did actually help with that
Well,
at the retreat in July.
I'm glad you pointed
that's
that
a
out.
cleanup batter, and I appreciate it.
He
But
came in, he wasn't even on contract, and he came in that day.
so honestly, to me, this is the last word in the second bullet. This is hopeful. Honestly, I can't think of a single slide that has been more hopeful in its presentation since I joined the board, because this is forward-looking. It talks about where we're going. It acknowledges in a tacit way where we've been, and I think this is a stunning synthesis of 12 people times all the people that we've ever talked to. So kudos.
Anybody else have any comments? Miss Reed? Bravo. I like that comment. I do want to thank you all. I think we are very pleased how you took our soup mix over there and made it into something that we all understand. For those of us who've worked in strategic planning before, and we're hopeful that we as a board could get this way. I thank you, leadership team, and everyone who's been involved in this. This is a great opportunity to see exactly where we are. I just wanted to comment on some of my colleagues. Ms. Hines, that's exactly what will happen. There'll be measurements, there'll be goals, and there will be costs attached to what it will take to achieve these goals. My caution to staff is but a brief one. We now have these areas, and we probably can have litanies under each of these areas. So be mindful the first year. This is a 1 to 3 year pair. Less is more when we roll this out, because we can add to it. It can be, once it's here, now that now it's here in this format, we all have a better understanding of it, and we can add as we check off the list and things like that. So I hear that you're already understanding that, and I appreciate that. So for now, what we will do is we will look forward to the refinement at the October 6th meeting, and that's where we are. And I believe we have to do next steps now from, no, we didn't go over the next steps from the other part of this work session, which was the Portrait of a Graduate update.
So just to recap on this, we're hoping to, at this next board meeting, we'll be bringing this forward as new business for the board to adopt. It just helps us continue to move this forward if we can adopt at least the major components of this. I know it's not the fully fleshed out plan, but that will come to you in October. But to be in a position to go out to the community and say, these are our strategic goal areas, will be helpful. And so that's why we've kind of chunked it. And I hope you see why we've done that, because despite how far we may be in October with the actual fully developed plan, we would at least at the Education Summit be able to talk about the strategic goal areas. And so we will be asking for you to consider adopting the 4 strategic goal areas
And
along
that-
with the Portrait of a Graduate.
And it's an action item at the next
Yes.
board meeting, just for clarification.
And again, I just want to thank all of the leadership team members who spent a good bit of time, almost an entire day, that we really dug deeply and got this work done. We have a great team. Very impressed with their work, and thank you, Marty.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, so let's recap before we end this work session. Under Portrait of a Graduate, these were our next steps. Dr. Garza to provide a revised Portrait of a Graduate descriptor document to the board by Wednesday, September 10th, and the board members will provide feedback on the revised Portrait of a Graduate descriptors document to Dr. Garza ASAP, which means before the close of business, hopefully on Thursday. It can stay like that. We're going to get back. We all know the time frame with any revisions. If there will be additional amendments required, let's hope to have those by the close of business to each other on Friday. And with that, this work session is ended. A 2-minute break before we go to audit. We have